In this lesson, we're going to be taking a look at Genesis 2 and 3 and focusing especially on a theological concept called original sin. Before we get to that, I'd like to do some review just to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we have a basic understanding of some of the most important points that we can interpret from the first two creation stories in Genesis. So let's take a look. I suggest you write this down in your notes. This will be helpful for your upcoming project. First of all, Genesis 1 to 11 are what we call foundation myths. These are stories that explain who God is, who we are, the intentions of the Creator, and our relationship with Creator. Genesis 1 to 11 basically shows us how God creates the universe good, but then people have a hard time getting along with God and with each other. We know that myths are spiritually and theologically true, but they're not historically true. It was not the intention of the writers to teach us history, but rather to say something on a religious level. Number 2, Genesis 1 can be interpreted to teach us that God creates a good world and human beings are made in God's image and likeness. We call that the imago Dei. Therefore, the human being has a special dignity. Fourth, humans are made to care for creation as God would. We also see that God commands a day of rest, a Sabbath. And we recall that the context of Genesis 1 was Israel in exile. They were writing a creation story to counter the Babylonian narrative about human beings being created from the corpse of a dead God to serve, be slaves to the gods. In Genesis 2 and 3, first of all, we have a new creation story that begins in Genesis chapter 2, verse 4. This is the story of Adam and Eve. It is older than the one in Genesis 1. How do we know that? The style of Hebrew is different. Just like with English, over the centuries the language changes and evolves. Same thing with Hebrew. Genesis 2 represents an older form of Hebrew than Genesis 1. Also in this story, God is called Yahweh, which is God's personal name. In chapter 1, God was called the Elohim, which is a royal title. It's how a person would address a king, a royal title. Genesis 2 is the personal title. We also see God portrayed anthropomorphically. God acts like a potter, creating the human being. Through trial and error, God tries to find a suitable mate for the first human before God creates the woman. The first human is created, called Adam, Adama, which is a word for red clay, and then the woman, because this human needed assistance. He couldn't make it by himself, so God creates a helpmate. And also, I think I might have mentioned this in some of our previous discussions, the word that's used for the helpmate, for the woman, denotes a superior. It's the same word that's used in the Hebrew Bible when God is called on as a helper. So the woman is used in this, the word for woman, the helper, is used in the same way that God as helper is used. So it suggests a superior presence. The man and the woman disobey God by eating from the tree of knowledge, and consequences follow. Those consequences include hard work, getting the earth to produce food, pain in childbirth. There's an alienation from nature that happens, signified by the snake who will now bite at their heel. And the crops that the earth produces will also have thorns. These are ways of symbolizing that the relationship has been broken and it's not going to be easy now. This story is what we call an etiology. It explains to people why things are the way they are. How did it come to be that life is hard? How did it come to be that there's pain in childbirth? Why do snakes bite? This is what this story teaches. It's called an etiology. And the truths that we can take away from Genesis 2 and 3, God creates with good intentions for people. God desires that we be in relationship with each other. And God sets boundaries. God knows what is best and is trying to teach us that way. Human beings make a choice to do it their own way. People have a hard time respecting those boundaries. So we can see that God sets things in motion creates with the best of intentions, but we have a hard time getting along with God, with each other, with nature. The rest of the Bible is how God tries to get us back on track. We see through the rest of Genesis, through chapter 11, things devolve, gets worse and worse. And then God really gets to work trying to change things, trying to get us back to where God knows we can be. All right, thanks for listening. Feel free to rewind this and pause if you need to and take notes. And we will go on with our slide presentation.